The house lights die to embers and the air tightens as if the room itself inhales. A lone silhouette materializes, a slim man sealed inside an obsidian suit, hair lacquer black, face half erased by wraparound shades so large they seem part of his anatomy. The audience feels the temperature drop, but can't tell whether it is fear, reverence, or some new element that steals the heat. Then the guitar chimes, a single bell pure E major, and Roy Kelton Orbison opens his mouth. Sound pours out that shouldn't fit inside human ribs. Velvet in the low register, silvered glass in the high, 4 octaves of ache bent around a single word. People grip armrests the way passengers do when turbulence hits. For the next 2 hours, no one coughs, fidgets, or checks a watch. They have entered Orbison time, a realm where heartbreak stretches and contracts like a black hole, swallowing every bright distraction. Long before he became the Phantom of the Opry, Roy was simply Kelton to family. His parents nod to frontier preacher Kelton Orbison, born April 23, 1936, in the Clapboard Hospital of Vernon, Texas. The Great Depression still stalked Main Street, and oil rigs outnumbered stoplights. His father, Orby Lee, took any job that paid: drilling, welding, hauling. By dusk, he looked like a character sketched in dust. His mother, Nadine Vesta, kept the lights of art flickering in the house, painting bluebonnet fields onto scraps of cardboard, scribbling poems in coffee-smudged notebooks, reading little Kelton nursery rhymes that landed not in his ears, but in the deeper chambers where melody grows. When Orby presented a $6 guitar for the boy's 6th birthday, he might as well have handed over a compass to some undiscovered world. Roy tilted the instrument against his tiny chest, felt the wood resonate, and knew, wordlessly the way you know dreams, that music was the door out. There was a hitch. Roy's eyes were betraying him. By 4, he wore spectacles thick as marbles for extreme hyperopia. Kids smirked, teachers spoke louder than necessary, and strangers mistook the squint for sullenness. Retreat became reflex. Yet the handicap brought a gift. It sharpened his ears. While other boys splashed in irrigation ditches after school, Roy huddled by his Philco radio, inhaling Hank Williams's twang, Lefty Frizzle's languid yodel, and the western swing of Bob Wills that made dusty dance halls levitate. At 8, he won a slot on local station KVWC, crooning "You Are My Sunshine" so earnestly that hard-boiled farmers allegedly paused chores to lean against tractor fenders and listen. At 9, he collected first prize at a talent contest, $5 and a handshake that smelled of engine grease. The money vanished in family groceries, but the electric sense of being heard stayed all his life. In 1946, the Orbisons moved 350 miles west to Wink, a sand-blown town whose population ballooned during the oil boom, then shriveled after, leaving 2 cafes, 1 picture show, and more tumbleweeds than teenagers. Roy hated it, and later wrote that nothing grew in Wink but thorns and barbed wire thoughts. Yet Wink provided incubation. Weekends he played songs between reels at the Ritz Theater, learning microphone control from grainy Gene Autry shorts and sneaking glimpses of black and white glamour from the projection booth. At 13, he formed the Wink Westerners, Roy on rhythm guitar and lead vocal, 2 school friends on steel and bass, another on snare, everyone sharing a single mic rigged to the high school PA. They rehearsed in garages, cotton gins, even on the back of a hay wagon. Their set list swung from Bob Wills stomps to Ink Spot's harmonies, a mashup that made older farmers double take. When the band scored a $400 payday playing a Knights of Pythias dance, Roy's father, who seldom spoke in exclamations, blurted, "Son, that's more than I made this month." A life plan crystallized on the spot. After high school graduation, Roy followed friends to North Texas State College in Denton, registering for geology because oil seemed stable, music didn't. Stability bored him within weeks. He spent lectures sketching chord changes over sediment layer diagrams and haunting the music building's stairwells, where the echo stretched his voice cathedral tall. One dorm afternoon, he bumped into Pat Boone, a squeaky clean upperclassman just back from signing a record deal in Chicago. Pat's easy grin and brand new Cadillac yanked Roy's axis 180 degrees. If Boone, less range, less mystery, could crack the industry, so could a half-blind kid from Wink whose falsetto could raise gooseflesh. Roy quit geology, switched to English, expanded the Wink Westerners into a TV-friendly combo that performed each Friday on Denton's KDNT TV. Tuition money funneled into gas tanks and Gibson strings. By 1955, the Westerners had evolved into the Teen Kings, louder, leaner, electric. They recorded Ooby Dooby, a frantic two-chord rocker written by college pals Wade Moore and Dick Pinner. A $2 acetate found its way to Sam Phillips at Sun Records. The Memphis Wizard busy unleashing Elvis, Jerry Lee, Carl Perkins, and Johnny Cash. Phillips loved Ooby's unbuttoned energy, signed the Teen Kings, and hustled them through the same room where Elvis had cut That's All Right. The track reached number 59 on Billboard and sold a respectable 200,000 copies, but royalties dribbled and Phillips insisted Roy stick to up-tempo numbers. Roy tried. Between takes, he'd drift to a corner piano, hush the room, and bleed out torch ballads until Phillips barked, "Sad songs don't sell, son. Kids want a bop." The contradiction soured fast. By Christmas 1956, the Teen Kings splintered, leaving Roy sleeping on Jack Clement's studio couch and pawning guitars for bus fare. Nashville called next. Broke and shaken, Roy knocked on the door of Acuff Rose, Music Row's songwriting powerhouse, and blurted, "I need work." They signed him as a staff writer at $35 a week. He cranked out ditties by day, drove a battered '55 Cadillac sedan by night, living on chili dogs and vending machine cokes. One demo, Claudette, caught the Everly Brothers mid-tour. They cut it for the flip side of All I Have to Do Is Dream, and Roy's bank account woke up to a $10,000 publishing check. He married the song's namesake, Claudette Frady, a vivacious brunette from Midland, and threw himself at songwriting with new hunger. Crucially, he teamed with Joe Melson, a plant foreman who moonlighted as a high-tenor crooner. Joe's soaring head voice braided with Roy's baritone until melodies glowed radioactive. Together they penned Only the Lonely. No major label bit, so Roy drove a rattletrap Buick to Fred Foster's fledgling Monument Records. Foster and engineer Bill Porter reinvented the studio for him. They parked drums in the corridor to get natural echo perched backup trio, the Anita Kerr singers on risers for choral bloom, and overdubbed string players directly onto the multitrack, a novelty in 1960 Nashville. Roy removed his thick-rimmed corrective glasses, studio glare made it impossible to read charts anyway, and sang Take 5. It ended on an F-sharp that broke so clean, Porter thought the tape had sliced. In 8 weeks, Only the Lonely hit number 2 in the U.S., number 1 across Europe, and sold 2 million. The soft-spoken Texan hid behind sunglasses at every photo call, claiming he'd misplaced his prescription pair. In truth, he liked the anonymity, the way shades erased fear. Orbison's Golden Run read like a comet catalog. Blue Angel, Running Scared, Crying, Dream Baby, In Dreams, Leah, Blue Bayou, It's Over. Roy wrote cinema more than pop, verses that built tension like film reels, choruses that resolved in last-second glory notes or collapsed into despair. No bridges, no reprises, sometimes no repeated sections at all. Radio programmers complained listeners inhaled every fragment. After Running Scared closed with that sky splitting. A natural other singers tried and routinely cracked in cover versions. By 1963, Roy outsold every American act abroad and headlined a UK tour where the Beatles opened. At the first show, fans screamed for Roy so long the Beatles waited 40 minutes to plug in. Lennon muttered, "Shift, Yank," but after hearing Roy kill crying and encore Candyman, they asked him to extend his set so they could calm their nerves. Offstage, they swapped riffs, compared leather boots, and posed for photos in which Roy, jet glasses, no smile, looked like their spectral chaperone. Amid chart conquests, domestic life teetered. Roy and Claudette sped around Nashville's suburbs on matching Triumph Bonnevilles. Elvis had shown them his Harley collection, and Roy caught the bug. Rumors of infidelity flared both ways. Roy off and away, Claudette lonely. They divorced quietly in early 1965, reconciled by Christmas, and welcomed a third son, Wesley, in spring '66. That June, after a recording session, they took the bikes for a sun-high spin down Old Hickory Boulevard. A truck lurched from a side road. Claudette slammed the driver's door and was thrown, dying instantly. Roy knelt in the heat-soft asphalt, cradling her helmet, black dye dripping from his hair, onto her boots. He played shows a week later, numb behind the shades. In 1965, Roy had inked a sensational $1 million contract with MGM. 20 albums over 7 years, plus a starring role in a feature film. The money sounded life-changing. The reality was factory work. MGM demanded 3 LPs a year. Roy obliged. There is only one Roy Orbison, 65, The Orbison Way, 66, Cry Softly Lonely One, 67. Many recorded on the road in studios rented by the hour. Hits became rarer as psychedelia bloomed. MGM cast him as a Civil War spy with a trick guitar rifle in the 1967 musical Western The Fastest Guitar Alive. Roy sang admirably. The picture bombed. Still abroad, he remained heroic. 12 Australian tours in a decade, packed halls in Japan, German TV specials, where he mumbled in rehearsal, then detonated on cue. September 14th, 1968, anguish struck again. Roy was touring Britain with Bill Henderson's package show when news crackled over hotel radio. His Hendersonville home was burning. Faulty wiring ignited timber. By the time fire crews arrived, 10-year-old Roy DeWayne and 6-year-old Anthony King had perished. 2 charred chimneys stood like ruined columns against dawn. Friends Johnny Cash and June Carter offered their own cabin for refuge. Reporters swarmed airport terminals, but Roy walked through them, blank as fog. He canceled sessions, bought a Cadillac Eldorado, and drove aimless southern highways, sometimes pulling over to wail in the dark. Songwriting ceased. Light returned as a young German fan named Barbara Jacobs, 21, tracked him down for an autograph after a gig in Leeds. Something in her optimism, sunny, stubborn, cut through the gloom. They married in 1969, built a cedar house on high ground facing Old Hickory Lake, and produced sons Roy Kelton Jr., 1970, and Alexander, 1975. Barbara became manager, stylist, and guardian angel, slipping nicotine patches into his coat when cardiologists warned an arterial collapse was imminent. The warnings proved prophetic. On January 18, 1978, surgeons at St. Thomas Hospital cracked his sternum for a triple bypass. He emerged pink-cheeked, voice intact, and swore off Camels for 13 heroic days before sneaking one behind the nurse's station. The late 70s cast him as elder statesman. Punk kids name-checked him in fanzines. Rockabilly revivalists wore his pompadour. Still, U.S. radio overlooked him until Don McLean covered Crying in 1980, climbing European charts. Then Emmylou Harris invited him for the duet That Lovin' You Feelin' Again, winning a Grammy and stirring Nashville's conscience. In 1985, he joined Johnny Cash, Carl Perkins, and Jerry Lee Lewis to cut Class of 55, a nostalgic jam at Sun Studio that felt like closing a circle. But the pivot came courtesy of auteur David Lynch. In Blue Velvet, 1986, Dean Stockwell's manic lip sync to Orbison's lullaby, In Dreams, turned innocence into menace. A college generation discovered Roy overnight. Sales spiked. Reprise Records funded a star-studded live special. At the Coconut Grove in Los Angeles on September 30th, 1987, music royalty assembled for Roy Orbison and friends, a black and white night. T-Bone Burnett staged it in crisp monochrome, as if 1963 had never ended. The band, James Burton, Glenn D. Hardin, Jerry Sheff, Elvis's core players, plus Springsteen, Tom Waits, Elvis Costello, Jackson Browne, Bonnie Raitt, K.D. Lang, Jennifer Warnes, all fanned out like disciples. Roy, center stage in his trademark Ray-Ban Wayfarers, sang 14 classics in one take, no overdubs, voice flawless. When he floated the final Love and It's Over, Springsteen reflexively pumped a fist. Broadcast on HBO, rebroadcast by word of mouth, the special reminded the planet that vulnerability, rendered pure, can feel seismic. 4 months later, Bruce ushered the Big O into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, recounting teenage nights driving the Jersey Shore with nothing but Roy on AM radio and the Atlantic on his left. Roy's acceptance speech, 56 seconds, ended, "I'll just say thank you and God bless you." George Harrison approached afterward. "We're banging around Dave Stewart's bungalow, recording for fun. Fancy joining?" The fun incubated the traveling Wilburys. George, Roy, Bob Dylan, Tom Petty, Jeff Lynne. Pseudonyms disguise stature. Roy chose Lefty Wilbury after Lefty Frizzell. Sessions felt like summer barbecue. Spaghetti dinners, Rickenbackers leaning against sofas, Dylan scribbling verses on hotel stationery. Roy's operatic cameo on Not Alone Anymore made Lynn stop playback and mutter, "That might be the best thing I've ever heard in my life." The album dropped October 25th, 1988, critics gushing, proof supergroups don't have to stink. Parallel to Wilbury Mania, Orbison was cutting a solo comeback produced by Lynn, Bono, Mike Campbell, and T-Bone Burnett. Bono and The Edge mailed a demo titled She's a Mystery to Me, insisting only Roy could sing it. Final overdubs wrapped in mid-November, but the frantic pace worried friends. Johnny Cash found him backstage at the Opry, hand to sternum, wincing. Roy brushed it off, boarded another flight, knocked out a last concert December 4th in Highland Heights, Ohio. 20 songs. Pristine. 2 nights later, he visited his mother in Hendersonville, joking about her holiday lights, then collapsed after dinner. A massive myocardial infarction stilled the voice at 52. The shock triggered an outpouring rarely reserved for non-politicians. Dylan issued a statement calling him the true voice of the spirit. Newspapers from Tokyo to Sao Paulo printed black border front pages. Mystery Girl arrived January 31st, 1989 and detonated. Top 5 in 20 nations, platinum in the US, UK, Canada. You Got It soared to number 9 Billboard, Roy's first American top 10 since Pretty Woman. Traveling Wilburys Violin won the 1990 Grammy for Best Rock Performance by a duo or group. During the ceremony, Harrison hoisted the trophy and simply said, "This is for Roy." Posthumous honors piled up. 1998 Lifetime Achievement Grammy, 2004 Avenue named Roy Orbison, Way in Wink, Texas, 2010 Hollywood Walk of Fame star embedded near Capitol Records Tower. Hologram tours beamed him onto 21st century stages. Teenagers who discovered him via TikTok covers wondered why every pop chorus didn't feel like thunder caught mid-rumble. But statistics, sales, awards, even that mythical 3 to 4 octave range miss the pulse. Roy Orbison's true legacy is an emotional architecture. He built cathedrals inside 3-minute singles, taught listeners that strength can sound like tremble, that a man wrapped in black could glow brighter than neon. Springsteen still drops to a hush before I drove all night. K.D. Lang credits the Big O with showing her the erotic charge in restraint. Chris Isaak shaped an entire career echoing that lonely vibrato. Heart surgeons calibrate technical feats in millimeters. Roy Orbison used millimeters of vocal cord to cut straight through bone and memory. Picture it again. The stage goes dark. The hush returns. A spectral figure in noir silhouette raises a gretsch, leans into the mic as though confessing sin. No gyrations, just sound. Sound that pours like mercury over the crowd until each listener becomes a resonant chamber, vibrating with every bruise they ever hid. As the last tremolo note fades, there is a silence so crystalline it feels like snow. Then the applause, a wall, a flood, a congregation exhaling. Somewhere in that noise floats the immortal promise of a shy, half-blind boy from Wink, that music, honestly sung, can outlive drought, divorce, inferno, even death itself, and carry the rest of us forward on its unstoppable, heartbreaking wings.